Okay, so we have a couple of things to help us, right? One is, and I know I'm gonna okay, so a tip for you all, if you want to reset, right? Like, so I've made all these changes, in the lecture, blah, blah. At this point, let's say, like, things are kind of in a broken state, or, say you mess stuff up. What you can do is do git status. I can see now the different files that I've changed. Expect column to have no days missing, expect months to have no days missing. You can, like, obviously we can take a look at individually what's going on here with like a diff. You can see all I did here is just add a breakpoint. But if you want to be safe about it and just say, hey, I want to get rid of all the changes I made to both of these, I can do git checkout dot. All right? And that will, now if you look at git status, it's clean. All those changes are gone. So if you look over here, this is the original code. I'm back to where basically it gets rid of every code since your last commit. So because I didn't make any commit, now git status is everything's wiped clean, but I still have the previous commits that these other people produced. All right. Okay. So what I was pointing out is that basically with the that this one's working and this one's not, and we can always use I really leaned on this as a clue to see how do I fix this stuff. All right. So at this point, we can run I think my first step was to run this, make sure this is actually working, because I want to make sure that my development environment is fine. So for that, it's the no days missing. It's supposed to be the one that's clean, that it is implemented properly. And again, this is to check my development environment and make sure that we're in good shape. Okay, and beautiful, right? Everything here is passing. It didn't take too much setup. I think you guys heard that in order for me to get it working, right? These things are broken, but I'm okay with that because I did not do the environment setup. I don't have MySQL installed, etc. AWS ClickHouse, right? So I'm cool with this. What's next? So now we want to see, is this broken? The month's missing. So it's the same thing, we just have to change it to months missing. So I want to, and this is a standard coding practice. You want to write tests such that they are properly read, right? Meaning that they are properly showing you the bug, okay, that's occurring. And that way your job becomes just pass the tests. So here, right, what is surprising, so this is correct, right? I expected this. This part is surprising for me, right, that the SQLite is not passing, because in the documentation for this expectation it said it was, but it doesn't seem like it is. Then you can see, here started, we can start to see the error message, but the question is, where in the line do you actually want to fix this? Where in the stack trace, right? Because it's occurring all over the place, right? And my answer typically is, you don't want to fix, it's almost like trying to, seeing an error in some sort of pip package. You don't want to start debugging the pip package. It's the same thing now with this entire code base, right? It's probably not with the generic code, util.py, validator.py. It could be, but that's not where I'm going to want to start, because if this thing's broken, then so many other things I expect will break. It's probably something close to my particular problem. So that's why what I recommend doing is you can press Command F if you have iTerm, and then you can search for the file name. So this is not, this is closed, but it's not the file name. Let's see if we can find the file name. We see it here, and this tells me query. This is probably where the code is broken. All right. So now we can actually just click on this, and now we're here. All right. And I expect that this is breaking right at this point. So I'm just going to want to isolate this. So I'm going to put this here. I'll call these my results. And then I'm not really going to use this, to be honest. I'm just going to make this an empty list for now. And I expect, or we kind of know this is going to break because we just saw that it broke, and it doesn't have this line about date format or something like that. I forget where it is. Yeah, select distinct date format doesn't. It says it just doesn't work with scicop-GTU. Hey, there is no function called that, and I feel like it doesn't work with SQLite. There's no function for that either. So we know we want to fix this code. How do we do it? We could learn SQL Alchemy, which maybe is a worthy goal. But for me, what instead I'll do is go over here and look to see how did they do it over here. All right, because here they got all the unique timestamps, and that's probably pretty close to what I want. In fact, you can see here they said they're returning all unique dates from the function, and over here I need to return all unique months. So in fact, maybe what I can do is learn from this good example and see, okay, what are they doing? And put a breakpoint here. Okay, so this is my working example, right? I want to see how is this working a little bit more. So we'll call the days missing one. Okay, and there's where I put it at the end here, and that lets me take a look at a couple things. One is I can look at what this query is, right? What is the SQL query that actually works? What does that return for me? And actually I need to do that, I can do that by calling it here, right? Because if I look at the query is like this compiled SQL Alchemy thing. Let's take a look at the results that it spits out for us. Okay, so this is a list of dates, and that looks pretty much fine for me to use in my other code base, because now I can just kind of get the months probably from each one of these, from just extract the month. One thing to point out, like, what are they trying to do? They were trying to, I think, use this date format thing, right? Which translates to these queries, these like SQLite query or a Postgres query. But the problem is those queries didn't work on the database. Like they weren't compatible with Postgres. It wasn't compatible with SQLite. And instead of performing this logic of like extracting the month on the database level, we can move up to the Python level, right? And the Python level is like going to be more generic because it's really just one version. Python is Python, whereas these databases all works in slightly different ways. So what I can do is probably use this code that I know works and produces for me a list of date strings, and then take these date strings and pull out the month, right? And that should return to me a list of unique months. Okay, so I learned that. I learned kind of like one, that I can use this thing. I can use this query. So let's do that. And we'll delete this and place in this query. Remember, I have Git. This stuff's on GitHub. If I ever need to go back, I can. It's fine. Or you can just comment it out if you're afraid of deleting things. And then we'll get the results. These results should give me back something like this, is what I'm expecting. And then from there, we want to get to all the unique months. For that too, I can start to you can start to look to see what are they doing here. Basically, they're doing something like if it's a string or if it's a date, then we'll format it. I don't have to do that yet, but it is something I just am keeping in mind at this point, that here's some Python logic to make, I don't know what they're doing, to make sure that it's in the right format or coerce it or something. This will come in handy later on. All right, so for right now, let's go back here. We just made a change. Let's see, does this thing work? And can we make some progress? So we just called the days missing. Now we copied over the code from days into the months code. Let's see, does this fix get us anywhere? Okay, So here, we're right here. We want to look at results. Okay, this is pretty good, right? Because if you think about how this is going to work, we want to check, are these months, right, like consecutive essentially? Are there no, when they say no gaps, it turns out what they mean is like that 10, 9, 8, something like that. And that means there's no months missing. You can, how do I know that? You can read the documentation, right? This metric expects data to include dates from consecutive months with no months missing, in between relative to maximum blah blah. User can define a threshold which allows some months missing, and then here's the actual test data. Okay, so they take today and then they subtract a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. So these guys are probably consecutive, whereas other ones, but then now they access it over here, right? So here's a gap because it's month, you know, say it's like January, April, something like that, right? This is, I think, maybe no, I don't know. This is also a gap, I guess, because of today and here. So anyway, those are the tests. And here are the dates that are being produced. 10, 9, 6 comes from probably here. 10, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, so what do we want to do? We want to go back and return a list of months. Okay? These should be all unique months. So, or we can just continue. Let's just actually, I'll show you the error. I'll just type continue. What if we try to return this? Actually, let's try to return these results. So we'll do that. Because we'll see, the error will show you itself, well, will show you what to do next. So let's just see the error. So basically what I mean is, you know, this function, SQL Alchemy, is going to have to interact with some part of the code base, right? Like some other code is calling this thing and expecting some results. And then it's going to break because we probably changed something. And we just can see, I can tell you it's going to break down here. And then we can see why it breaks and how it breaks. All right? So we'll call this. And remember, right now we're returning a list of string dates, basically, right? In that format of like day, month, year. And let's see if we can find the error message. Okay, here's our error message. So again, this is pretty good, right? Why? Because we see all this mess, but this is generic validator.py, expectation configuration 1494, right? Expectation.py. Finally, something in yellow, right? That matches our code. Line 162, invalidate. Line 163. Looks like we should go there. Command click. Okay. So what's happening is, and now you can take a breakpoint here if you want. You know, just put the breakpoint right before and see what's going on. And let's actually run this. Okay, so, well, you can see what's going on. We are going through every variable. We're about to break right here. And we're going through everything in this dist months as string. What is that? That comes from here. Where does this come from? It comes from this thing, which apparently gets passed through as an argument. But somehow what we did up top here in that SQL Alchemy code affected something way down here. Let's take a look. See this metrics, it has the distinct months, and those are our dates that we produced before. Okay, so these dates here are what we threw over the function way up top here. There are these results. So we're going to need, you know, if you think about the error message that's coming for us, the problem, I think, is that if you take one of those dates, you need to be able to get the distinct months sorted. Like we need to turn this into a bunch of months. And this should probably be a date time object. So let's see what datetime.scrape does. It takes the month string and some sort of format. And then, so basically we can do like datetime dot strafe time, and then let's say you take some sort of string here, maybe this, and then maybe the month format as like percentage year hyphen percentage month hyphen percentage day, and that produces a date time object for you. So that's what they're trying to do here, is turn these guys into date time objects, and then they can calculate the difference in months. All right. So why is this breaking for us? I think actually maybe the only reason why it's breaking is because this is a tuple and not a string. We can try that, you know. So we can take this maybe. So let's try it first and say, okay, for it might be a little hard. I don't remember if I can do this list comprehension so easily here. Let's just, I think for I in this list, let's just return, let's call this record, like a database record. Let's call this record square bracket 0, and let's call that my dist, you know, whatever this thing is. And that actually worked. That's pretty good as string. So now I remove the tuple, right? Just have the string. And now let's see, will this line work? So we'll go through here. Let me make it a little easier to put this in the terminal. Oh, I just import datetime from datetime. Something like that. No. From datetime, import datetime. Let's do this. Okay. And now let's try that again. Oh, you liar. Yeah. Okay, so we're just running into a terminal issue. So let's see if this got us a little bit better. So all I did, so here's where I am for those of you confused. We ran into a bug here, right? The bug we ran into was saying, hey, I'm not able to take this month string and turn it into a date time. Why is that? Well, it's because we're getting this column distinct months thing from up top here. How do I know that? One way to tell, you can kind of start to figure it out. This class ends right here. It only has one function in it, and it has this metric name, column distinct months. So I'm using my context clues or whatever you call it. So we could fix it here maybe. You know, all we need to do is not return a tuple, instead of return a list of strings. So maybe we should do that. So let's, for our results, we'll do something like for a result in results, let's return result square bracket 0, right? Because this was a list of tuples, and we'll call that all unique months, maybe. And then let's return all unique months, and then we'll come down here and see if we got any further, right, down to this part right here. Okay, and the question is, now that this returns something different, will this be okay, right? Sorry about that. It is still breaking here. No months missing. Let's put a breakpoint. Run it again. Either way, just know we have made progress here. Because remember, where we were breaking previously was back in the SQLite stage, and now we are really on our way, because we just have to deal with some Python in terms of taking this list of tuples and getting it, you know, being able to like turn it into a date time, and then from there, it's like we can kind of understand this. This is calculating the difference between the max and the min, right? Like, so we are really, I think, kind of on our way, even if it may not feel like it. Okay, so we put a breakpoint right before here. Let's see what this is. Okay, this is a list of strings, right? We'll use our old trick of try to solve this for 1 instead of, oh, I know what the issue is. So we're passing through just a single month string. Let's call the first one of these a month string. Equals this guy, the first one. Is that what's called? The month string. So this is my month string. Now we'll take this month string and pass it into and use this month format. What is the month format though? The month format is not aligning me with the format of my string. So I think that's one of the issues. So it should be year, month, and then we need a hyphen day here. So let's just do year, month, hyphen percentage day. Does that work? That works, right? So now that that works, let's just replace it and put that here. Then we can go through the list. This will turn into a list of date times. Then from there, we are going to get, it should sort them. The sorting should still work, right? It should still probably properly sort date times. Then they get, because they're sorting, the first element's the min, the last one is the max, right? Min, max. Calculate the delta in terms of months. See the difference. And that might get us pretty close. I wonder if any of this works now. Press Q a bunch of times. Let's try it. Year, month, day. Strafe time argument 1 must be a string. Oh, this is okay. This is fine. Okay, here's the issue. I'm surprised that we didn't get anything green, but what's confusing here, what's going on here is we just saw that, so let's read this. Strafe time argument must be type string, not date time date, okay? And it's breaking here, okay? We just saw that this was a string, that like this was not a date time date. However, there is a problem, which is depending on the database, it's, Great Expectations is running our tests with like each database, okay? So it's running it with SQLite, and then it's running it with Postgres. And SQLite returns strings, okay? But Postgres is going to be returning dates. So remember I said this will come in handy? What's going on here is it's saying, hey, when we get return dates, right? Basically look at the first element coming back from this query. If it's of type date, turn it into a string, right? This way it's making the data consistent for us. Because right now it's inconsistent based on you'll see sometimes it's returning dates, which is when it's in Postgres. Right now, when Postgres, it returns dates. And then when SQLite, it returns strings. And because of that, we need this if condition that when it's a date, turn back into a string. That way, when we go, we won't get this error anymore that says, hey, why are you handing me a date? You know what I mean? When we expect to get a string. So we can basically, again, look to our example and copy it. Something like that. And say, okay, if all unique months, if this thing exists and the first one, you notice this is not showing up. So I wonder where this came from here. It came from here, from date time import date. Well, I'm going to follow their pattern of putting this in the function. I don't know. It seems like they like that, so I'll just follow them. And now this is showing up. So if this is of type date, then convert it, then make all unique dates a string, I believe, is what that's going to do. And now, see if we got any better. Okay. Well, at least we got this part, right? Uh, it's breaking again, but we got closer. Let me see. Sorry, I'm gonna call it pretty soon. All unique months, line 49, cannot access a local variable where it is not associated with a value. Let me just see this. Here's my list of results. All unique months is...
You have to rename it to months.
Which line are you looking at?
50.
Line 50.
Is that to be all unique months?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's do that. Okay, so we have this list of results. We're pulling out you remember it was a tuple? We're turning it into a list of strings. Then we're saying, is that first record, if in the case that we were using Postgres, and that first record is a date, then convert it into a list of strings again and return that. When it's not that, just leave it as it is. Let's see if that does any better. Okay, that is a passing commit, guys. It might feel like magic, but it's not. And the other thing, is like in real life, I put a lot more breakpoints here. I put breakpoints and like step through when I had something breaking. I was like, what's the engine? Okay, what happens when I query this thing? Like really identify it, just like get as close as possible to the bug, reproduce the bug, and then try to fix it. But the other thing I kept doing was like looking to see execution engine dot engine to see what am I working with, right? That's really the hard part. Is just sometimes it's giving it's calling this really for Postgres, and then sometimes Postgres is going to return a different kind of type than than SQLite might. And how do you deal with that? Well, I would check to see, okay, what is it returning, for each engine, right? By putting a breakpoint, just, then do continue, go to the next one. What is the engine, right? Execution engine dot engine, right? We're still in SQLite land. What, blah, blah. And you can always, put print statements to see it, but that is like the general idea. So what did we learn? First step was made sure this was working in the supposedly working code. So basically we're checking our environment. Then the next thing was make sure it's properly broken over here. All right. We said that basically like the general strategy is that we're getting these bugs because the databases operate differently. So our general strategy is move the logic away from the database layer, meaning SQL Alchemy, and then maybe make a more generic query. So for example, here, I didn't mess around with trying to just extract the month or whatever, which I think is what they were doing, and said just like, hey, just give me back those dates, and then I'll work with it in Python land, okay? And the other thing, of course, was I looked closely at the other code to see how are they doing it. That's how they did it. Made it more generic, work in Python land, right? And then have this if statement. The other thing I'd say is like their code is not like the cleanest thing in the world. Like for I and I of 0, like what the heck is that? Like this is not the cleanest code in the world. You guys can certainly write code worthy of this code base. And then I think you learned a bit about how Great Expectation works, right? You have these tests defined down here, right? And when you call this file, it calls this expect column to have no months missing, print diagnostic checklist. Somehow this is going through each of those different connectors, each of those different databases, running the test for each corresponding one. I don't know how exactly. Then it's calling this SQL Alchemy engine, right? Both with SQLite and then with Postgres. We know that Postgres sometimes returns different data types than the other one. This result here, column distinct months, that metric name, we then access that data down in the validate function, right? So we throw that kind of return value over the wall, and this is how it knows whether or not it's passing. Is if it's success, and you can kind of see how success works. Here's the number of missing months. If the number of missing months is less than the threshold that's defined, right? And then this is all just Python logic right here. So it's like once you guys get to Python, my sense is you're okay, all right? And it's just going to be a task of, trying to find a reference, like find an example that works, that's pretty good, and then also making it more generic, making probably when it's breaking, it's because this isn't generic enough. So make it generic so that then we can work in Python. All right. What is the benefit of working in SQL at all? Right. We have to interact with the database at some point. It is faster the closer you get to the database, but if it's broken, it's broken. You have to, we have to fix it. We worry about speed after that.